unpack for us what is happening with these amendments at committee, what it is your take is on what the Liberals are trying to do, the extent to which it's unusual in the legislative process or not, and what is happening?
So the Liberal government has been being very sneaky. They're moving at the amendment stage to ban perfectly legitimate hunting rifles. They're now going after hundreds of models of perfectly legitimate hunting rifles. And they're being very sneaky about it because they did not allow this to be debated in the original form of the legislation. We were not able to debate this in the House. We were not able to call expert witnesses to weigh in on this. They are introducing an amendment to ban hundreds of models of perfectly legitimate hunting rifles at committee stage. So it has really limited any democratic scrutiny. Our ability to democratically debate this is very, very limited. And so we're very concerned, and I think the problem is this is coming in light of a 92% increase in gang-related homicides since Trudeau took office. We just found that out from StatsCan. We have a 32% rise in violent crime since Trudeau took office. So we're seeing gang and criminal violence, often with illegally smuggled in handguns from the U.S. Canadians are rightfully concerned about the gang and criminal activity concerning firearms. Conservatives are deeply concerned about that, particularly in light of the newest statistic that 92% of increase in gang-related homicides. Now, so this is happening, and yet the Liberal government is putting their energy into going after hunters. This is, in fact, the largest assault on hunters in the history of Canada that I'm aware of. Again, these are trained, tested, vetted Canadian hunters. They're going after Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle instead of gangsters in Toronto.
But can you explain how they're doing that? Like, is this about the amendment they've introduced that sort of sets parameters for what guns are considered prohibited, or what's the specific legislative thing they're doing that makes this change, in your opinion?
So they're bringing forward an amendment that adds, as you said, certain parameters to what are prohibited firearms. So we have non-restricted firearms, we have restricted firearms, and we have prohibited firearms. No one is allowed to legally own them. Criminals own them illegally, but no one is allowed to legally own them. So they're taking non-restricted, the lowest classification, in much of the case, perfectly legitimate hunting rifles, and making them prohibited, completely banning them. And unlike with the OIC that came out 2.5 years ago, where they told Canadians who own these firearms legitimately, don't worry, we'll pay you for them, that doesn't appear to be the case here. So we're talking about millions of perfectly legitimate hunting rifles that people will not be receiving an ounce of compensation. So you got Grandpa Joe's hunting rifle, too bad he can't use it anymore, the Liberal government is banning it. That's what we're seeing here. It's deeply concerning, and again, the focus should be on the gang-related homicide spike that we've seen, and yet they're targeting hunters. So we just feel that it's a deeply misplaced set of priorities given Canadians are concerned about rising violent crime, and it's completely unfair to Canadians' perfectly legitimate hunting community. They're being attacked by the Liberals when we have a legitimate gang violence problem that they should be going after. To say nothing of the cost, we know that their OIC, that so-called buyback, which is a confiscation regime, is estimated to cost now $5 billion. That's what it may cost. And so this on top of that, if they do come back and say, oh wait, we're going to compensate hunting rifles, which they have not yet done, how much is that going to cost? We're talking $10 billion. It'll easily double. Hunting rifles are expensive. They're expensive tools used by farmers as well. So are we talking about $10 billion to be spent on hunting rifles and others when we have a gang violence issue in our cities? It's just very difficult to understand the priorities of this government when Canadians have every right to be calling on us to do something about gang violence. So we're deeply disappointed, and we're just learning about this. It just happened a few days ago. We're trying to understand the magnitude, but just to clarify in sum, the Liberal government is coming after hunting rifles now. They're coming after hunters. Yeah.
From a